Welcome into the Still Curtain podcast. I'm Josh Yourish, and we have some Monday breaking news as the Pittsburgh Steelers sign head coach Mike Tomlin to a 3-year contract extension that will keep him in Pittsburgh through 2027. This is the big news of the day. It's a slow news period in the NFL. There wasn't a ton to talk about, and the Steelers gifted us with something just in time for our Monday show, or just after finishing the early stream of the Monday show. Mike Tomlin staying in Pittsburgh through 2027. He was heading into the final year of his contract. The Steelers always like to extend his contract ahead of that. They don't want to end up with a lame duck season with their head coach. Their head coach that, stop me if you've heard this before, this is a new one, has never had a losing season. Now, you may not even know that little trivia fact. No one's ever brought it up. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season in Pittsburgh. He's been the head coach for, since 2007, 17 years, and he's never had a losing season. Well, he's also not won a playoff game in a while. Since 2016, rather. That was the last time the Steelers won a playoff game, and now Mike Tomlin gets 3 more years. Heading into a pretty mercurial situation that could go south. There are 2 schools of thought with Mike Tomlin. He is a great coach. He is an excellent motivator. He actually gets in the locker room with these guys in a way that other coaches don't. He relates to them in a way that other coaches can't seem to. He can hold a team with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger together and get a lot out of those players and keep their heads on straight for quite a while. He did for quite a while. He's doing the same with George Pickens now, a mercurial personality, and he wins games. He always finds a way to win games. And he's done a lot of that with pretty poor quarterback play since Ben got hurt in 2019. Since his elbow went, he hasn't had good quarterback play, but now the Steelers will be heading into their 3rd season since Ben with another quarterback situation because Tomlin was not able to put the right staff around Kenny Pickett, and maybe no staff would have been able to do this, but he was not able to develop the young quarterback that he and Kevin Colbert identified as the next franchise quarterback. He hasn't been able to win a playoff game in a really long time, and now he can't develop a quarterback, or at least didn't develop a quarterback. So, okay, he's still here. Art Rooney says, you're still here. Omar Khan says, you're still here through 2027. And there are some serious advantages to having this level of organizational stability. You have one vision. You don't have conflicting visions between your GM, your owner, your head coach that can tear an organization apart. This way, you can draft for long-term in the future. You can take a shot on a guy like Kenny Pickett with the 20th pick in the 1st round, and it doesn't work out. And that doesn't mean it's your career, right? You're still fine. You can stay around. You can take a low-risk option with a Russell Wilson, try to strike gold with Justin Fields. You can do these things because you're going to be around for a long time. And I think the Steelers' long-term approach has been a net positive. But it's been a long time since a playoff win in Pittsburgh. Results have to come at some point, right? 9 wins is enough for Art Rooney. It's not enough for a lot of this fan base that's getting tired of this with Mike Tomlin. The local fans in the national media see Mike Tomlin in a very different light. Mike Tomlin is revered as one of the best coaches in the NFL, and that's deserved. He is one of the best coaches in the NFL. But he also has his teams play down to competition way more often than they should. He has his teams give up winnable games more often than they should. And now he can't develop a modern offense because he's trusting a guy like Matt Canada, not a new age offensive coordinator. he hasn't developed a coaching staff. There is no Mike Tomlin coaching tree. He's been one of the most successful head coaches in the NFL since 2007, 17 years on the job. And there's not a Mike Tomlin coaching tree to speak of. There's not an innovative young offensive coordinator that he developed. They've had their most success with retreads. Guys like Bruce Arians, who was kind of forced on him, Todd Haley. Now they're trying it with Arthur Smith. Brian Flores was a nice hire who helped out the defense and is doing great things in Minnesota. He was already a head coach. The organization doesn't invest a ton in the coaching staff outside of Tomlin. And they think in many ways that Tomlin can cover up those deficiencies, but there should be somebody, right? There's no coaching tree. There's no playoff wins. And these are the frustrations of the fan base. And yet I totally understand it. I want an organization that's stable. I don't want to be the Cleveland Browns. You don't want to do that. You don't want to just chase things all the time and replace GMs and replace coaches and put this immediate pressure on them to perform because it warps decision making. The number one job of an NFL head coach and an NFL GM is to keep the job. So they will act in a self-preservational way if they feel like the seat's getting hot. Mike Tomlin never has to do that. He can always take a long-range approach. And there are so many benefits that come from that. But there has to be some results at some point. This should have been a year where Mike Tomlin was going in with a lot of pressure. It seemed to have gotten stale. And I like a lot of the things Omar Khan's done, the way he's built this roster. And Mike Tomlin has a big hand in that. He plays a big role in the draft, and he's one of the best developmental coaches in the NFL. But now there's no pressure heading into a year like this. And there probably should have been. There probably should be a rising temperature on Mike Tomlin's seat at some point. There has to be, right? Yes, Mike Tomlin, if he was ever let go by this organization, he would be hired in 1 second by any team. There are plenty of teams that would fire their head coach to hire Mike Tomlin. But there are a lot of problems in this organization. Young coaches are not being developed. They never have. And frankly, they never will under Mike Tomlin. He's never going to have a coaching tree. And that is a stain on his resume that is fair. It's a rightful criticism that I don't hear from national media guys who constantly praise Tomlin. The fact that he hasn't been able to develop a quarterback and didn't give him the chance to be developed. There's a difference between a first-round pick like Kenny Pickett not panning out and never being given the chance to. And I don't think if you had him in Kyle Shanahan's or Mike McDaniel's scheme or Sean McVay's scheme, Kenny Pickett ever would have been a high-level starting NFL quarterback. But he was never given a chance with Matt Canada. And we stuck with that guy for multiple seasons. We being the Steelers. Through 2027, there's going to be no change. You better win a playoff game. Mike Tomlin has to win a playoff game on this extension. 20 years. And the last playoff win, he'll be the head coach for over 20 years. And if he doesn't have a playoff win since 2016, we could be looking at a decade of 9, 10-win seasons, nothing to show for it in the playoffs. And he's still getting to the end of this contract extension. That's a problem. I love organizational stability. It's a great thing. There are a lot of benefits. But man, you could have done another 1 year on the back end. 2, 3 is a vote of confidence in a head coach that, while he's never had a losing season, probably doesn't deserve it. But that's the way the Pittsburgh Steelers operate, and that's the way they'll always operate. It's made them one of the most successful organizations in the NFL. It's also prevented them from being on the cutting edge of innovation in the NFL. Mike Tomlin's a defensive coach in a league run by offensive coaches, dominated by offensive coaches. It's hard to win like that, especially when you're not developing young offensive minds. It's fine. It was going to happen. It's not a surprise. It's business as usual. But the results of the last 5, 6, 7 years don't dictate that it should be business as usual in Pittsburgh. All right, that'll do it for our little mini live stream, mini Mike Tomlin live stream. Great breaking news, exciting to talk about and to add on to the show earlier. If you haven't checked it out yet, make sure to go check out the show. We talked about some offseason departures, big moves from the Steelers this offseason. Mike Tomlin not going to be a departure for a very long time. We talked about that. We broke down the secondary, a position group that Mike Tomlin hasn't really been able to develop as well as you'd expect for a guy with defensive backfield background. So go check that show out, and we'll be back next Monday, probably with not as big of news as we had today with this Mike Tomlin contract extension, but with a great show nonetheless. Be sure to check that out on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, the Still Curtain Podcast, and check out Wednesday's show with Tommy Jagai and Shane Cubis. I'm Josh Yourish, saying so long.